we are going to have to scale these ideas super quickly. And we've got a fantastic panel to talk through that. Just a brief introduction to me. I'm Newey, I'm Chief Executive of the Energy Systems Catapult. So scaling companies is our kind of day job. We work with small and medium-sized enterprises as well as some of the larger companies thinking about opportunities in the net zero space and how companies grow as quickly as possible. But scaling is about lots of things which we're going to touch on. Yes, it's about finance. We talk about there. It's also about how you get ideas through the valley of death, how you work out what good ideas, and also what bad ideas, and get rid of them as quickly as possible. But also about skills, about the way we've got the workforce that are going to help us make that transition. Just a couple of practical things. So we will be taking questions. I'm really keen to get to questions as soon as possible. The questions, and those who've been to panels already here will know, are done through Slido. If you look at the QR code at the far end of the stage, just above me, if you click through on that, you'll be able to put some questions in, and hopefully they'll appear on my tablet, and I'll pick my favourite ones, or the ones that make it as awkward as possible for the panel, and we'll get through to those. If that doesn't work, we'll do the old-fashioned way, but we'll attempt to push it through Slido. We've already got Slido app. The code is IZ24, which registers you for this event. So, we're talking about scaling. We've got a fantastic panel to look at these questions from different angles, as I say. So, on the far end of the panel is Matthew Harwood, and he feels a long way away from me, so hopefully you can hear him. Matthew Harwood is the Chief Strategy Officer at OGCI Climate Investment. So, those of you who don't not aware of OGCI, so they're the Oil and Gas Climate Initiative, which is an initiative from 12 members of the oil and gas sector who are looking at opportunities in this transition, particularly around CCUS, transport, as well as things like measuring methane emissions. Matthew has had a fantastic career. If we can summarise it, working for energy companies and working out how to take advantage of the clean bit is the best way of summarising it. He's worked for McKiernan, the engineering firm at Johnson Matthey. He was looking at hydrogen and battery storage development, as well as work with Petroflag, looking at offshore wind. So he's working in a kind of oil and gas environment, often thinking about how they can make that transition, which is a really important perspective as we go through. Next to Matthew is Giulia. Totally moved my notes in the wrong order. Giulia Marzetti, who is a very unusual person in the climate space. First of all, she is a female in engineering, which not should be applauded, and probably even more rarely is somebody who's a kind of recovering policy person. It's always nice to see is an engineer in policy, has been in government, and if I could go back and have my time in government again, I probably would listen to engineers a bit more than I would have done previously. There are lots of nods from EngineeringUK. So Giulia, previous role was as the team coordinator of the European Commission, thinking about particularly this issue around skills, and she's been a big advocate for embedding the UN Sustainable Development Goals in her various different activities, and she's worked in a range of different markets across the world and thought about decarbonisation and engineering in those contexts. Next to Giulia, we've got Hilary Leevers, who is the Chief Executive of EngineeringUK, which is an advocacy group which is doing a huge amount trying to build up the kind of cadre of engineers across the UK. Think about partnerships, think about initiatives which are going to drive that, and they're obviously going to be an essential part of this transition. Don't tell all the engineers that work at the Catapult that I said that. I try as much as possible to ignore what they say. Previous to doing this role, Hilary was at Welcome, where she was in this area of science education, and building up there. Has been a campaigner for including the campaign of science engineering in various different roles. Rather unusually for this panel, because Matthew's also an engineer. She's not an engineer by training. She's had, I don't think we'll be able to get into this, but a fascinating kind of background in psychology and cognitive development of language, which I think probably gives a really useful perspective about how we win some of these arguments going forward. And last but by no means least, I'm going to introduce John McKiernan, who is the head of innovation pipeline at ESB. There you go, Jazz hands, wow. ESB is the Irish state-owned power utility. John has been at this for decades, thinking about how innovation moves through the life cycle journey, and he's going to talk some of his experience looking at that. He was previously at Greencoat Capital, who kind of were pioneers in this space, and he's also involved in something called free electrons. I would really encourage you guys to look at. That's a kind of partnership about trying to get startups and utilities talking to each other. One of those organisations which has absolutely really important role. So that's the panel. I'm going to ask a few questions of them on this question of scaling up, meeting that transition. Strong encouragement for you to posit your questions. If you dislike something they've said, if you want to challenge something they've said, if you want to say something nice about what they've said, use the Slido, and I won't answer anything nice, get on the Slido app and put your questions, and I'll pick them up after we've gone through. Okay, so I'm going to start this end and work my way down. John, so what do you see as the main challenge to scaling as we make this transition?
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me? Hand up the back, can you hear me? Okay. Well, it's you guys. You guys make it happen, right? So, welcome. You've already taken the first step to net zero by showing up here today. Showing up is important. A lot of people don't show up, so thank you for that. So, the challenge to scaling for us, the value of debt was mentioned in the previous panel. It's well-known phrase for when you come up with a great idea and then nobody shows up to buy it from you. So maybe it wasn't that great, or your marketing skills aren't fantastic, and you run out of money. Your family and friends stop giving you their cash, and you're in trouble. So, how do you solve that? If your stuff is really good, well, you can show up free electrons. The paradigm there was power utilities never wanted to work with startups because they're just a pain in the never. We prefer to work with large OEMs who have lawyers and balance sheets that we can sue them and reputations at risk, so it's a low risk. However, now that we're trying to get to net zero in a hurry, that's no longer an option. We have to work with startups because that's where all the innovation is happening. And somewhere in this audience here, there's a couple of entrepreneurs in waiting who will make that leap of faith. I was at a launch last night of somebody with a really good UK government job to launch a startup. So somewhere in there, you will find that energy to do that. We can help you. How does that work? Well, we've gone from being the oil and water we don't mix to rolling out the red carpet. So we realize we need your technology. We need entrepreneurs. We need more engineers. We need other disciplines. Because, this is literally saving a lot of time. And it was mentioned earlier on, collaboration is the order of the day. We don't have a monopoly of wisdom. We're a power utility. We're not even a technology developer, but we're a fantastic pathway to customers. So in the free electrons group, we have 80 million customers. So 1 in 100 people on planet Earth pay us money for electricity every month. That's a fantastic challenge to market for. It's a lot of doorbells and external. So if you come to us in the program, you meet other entrepreneurs, make friends, we pay your expenses. So we run out the red carpet. We turn this on its head. Instead of like skeletons lining up at the door of old age trying to slow no. The worst thing for a startup is not a no, a slow no. So they think they're getting in and they never get in. So you say, actually, fix that, come back, and we give you a reason, right? So we roll out this red carpet, we pay your expenses, and we'll give you a pilot contract. And the pilot contract, if you don't get a pilot contract, you're nowhere, because nobody does a rollout without doing a pilot first. Not when you're stuck with engineers who are risk that, then you get your VCs will come online and say, oh, you've got traction with a world-class utility. Yeah, that's you're on the road out of the dead valley, right? So we give that pilot contract in essence, and that's how you help bridge that gap. Long answer to a short question. I'm terribly sorry.
No.
Please stay with everybody. There's more exciting people coming.
John, before we move on though, that kind of point about joining up with real customers, pathway to customers, because the innovators we work with in the Catapult, what do they want when you get down to it? First of all, they want customers. Then they want funding, potentially, depending on the type of technology, third grant. So it's definitely in that order. Do you think it's changed over the last 5 or 10 years that the utilities have actually, when you said there's got a realisation that we don't have all the answers, but that hasn't always been the case. Often utilities have got, we'll work out the answers ourselves. Do you get a sense that that's changing?
Well, as you can see on the dinosaurs, I actually remember the last ice age when utilities would not work with startups at all, absolutely wasting their time. In fact, if you look at the tenders, they put out revenue numbers, and there's no way a startup will pre-qualify. So you get rid of them before they even start, right? That's all changing now because actually we need a whole range of technologies to get to net zero, and we're in a hurry. We can't wait for Siemens or ABB to buy a startup and then get their fancy sales guys to sell to us at twice the price. We have to grow it now and find it early, right? So the challenge is, for us, it has completely changed. We had no interest. When I started working, innovation was like an innovation and moderation job, the like out in the corner there. And we just did, if you took no risk at all, it was fine. We would still be in business. The highest risk now for a power utility and for all companies is you're not going for net zero. If you're not trying anything, the highest risk is not to try. So you have to try something. So trying in the most efficient way. So the challenge for everybody here is, are you doing enough? So we are trying harder to find new ways, efficient ways to engage with startups, not to waste their time, but to fill it fast and furious and say yes, no, fix that, come back next year, and let's try and get this into embedded. Step one is disrupt BAU, business as usual. Disrupt that. Try something new. AI is coming in every door, but it doesn't work well in all parts of the business. Try and find the low-hanging fruit. Where does it actually help somebody? So it takes away the boring part of their job, so that the subject matter expert can do the exciting part of their job and not do a whole lot of looking at 1,000 images to look for a crack. Let the AI do that stuff, because there is not enough people in our sector as a segment.
All right, well, we'll definitely pick up that. So Hilary, same question to you. What do you see as the biggest barrier to scaling up basically?
Yes, I think a lot of our the sound check as well. Yeah, okay, great. So a lot of the focus is on policy and all of the enabling finance around the technology, which we also need. But I think there's a tendency to overlook the skills needs, and it really is something that if you're not feeling, you will be feeling. So we've got a lot of evidence around shortages in the engineering and tech sector, and that's where the majority of people who are going to find and implement these solutions are. So research we had last year, we've got about 19% of roles in the UK are in engineering and technology, or 26% of job adverts. There's a 55% increase over 5 years in roles asking for these skills, and there's a wage premium in this area, and people can see it coming down the track. So the Climate Change Committee reckon there are 725,000 roles needed by 2030. What we're seeing is an urgent response from government and industry. The team have set up about 15 different task forces, but they're all quite incoherent, coming up with their own analyses, their own solutions, and not looking to ensure that they're not the same as someone else is doing. Someone described it to me as, they're all getting better at fishing, but no one is growing the size of the pond. And so that's what we need to try and do, but there's quite a lot of risk in the system in terms of the numbers of young people coming through. The higher education system is under a lot of challenge with its reliance on the income of overseas students, changes in migration, reform, impacting on that. There's a risk there, and then in the FE system, we see seen a decline in the number of apprenticeships in engineering and manufacturing, down about 22% for the youngest age groups, so people are entering that workforce trajectory, down about 22% since about 2017. And then we're in this massive period of reform from post-16 with the introduction of T-levels and the defunding of a whole load of BTECs, which may have had their issues but are reliable, good through. Again, a massive ask and need for industry to step up and supply placements. I think up to 40,000 placements, 9 new placements a year, to feed the engineering, design and digital T-level system that's just been rolled out. And then looking below 16, we just published research last week showing that we're seeing a decline in young people's interest in science, and they're not having as much practical work. There's been a real fall in D&T, so that kind of practical, hands-on creativity, problem solving that we know excites people into these areas is also an issue. So, it's a bit like on the main stage, quite a bit of doom and gloom here. There are solutions, there are policy solutions, there are things we can all do, but I just encourage everyone not to presume that, we build it, we get the money, and the workforce will come. It needs real activity.
So that is quite a depressing picture. So you've got a kind of need of 725, 750,000, whatever the number is, across a huge number of sectors, and a massive chunk of those being kind of the engineering and science space. But then your numbers are saying a kind of decline of people getting into the top end of the funnel, as it were, going on. So what needs to happen?
Yeah, so I would say, so we've seen AT go up a bit, but I still think there's risk. FE, it's in a strange place at the moment, and then this risk that is in the system. So I would say definitely no evidence of an increase, some real risk of decline. Two things, so one, a massive policy effort. So we're talking about, the need for an industrial strategy, but that needs to be underpinned by a STEM workforce strategy that brings together all the insights that have been generated by these task forces, but into a coherent strategy, which includes buy-in from the industry, but DFE responds to.
Yep.
And DFE ideologically embraces its role in assuring that the UK has workforce balance. So there's a real need for policy and a couple of very big interventions. One, investment in STEM teachers.
Yeah.
And actually over the last couple of weeks we've had some really worrying announcements about reducing investment in STEM teaching recruitment and in their professional development. Really just extraordinary decisions from a financial and teaching quality perspective. Those are the returns you get from that investment. But we also need a really robust presence of engineering and tech in the school curriculum. And at the moment they're very underrepresented. It's science and then D&T, and they're quite different. Most of the engineering content is over in D&T. And actually there's a huge opportunity in this space to talk about climate change. The government DFE has a climate change strategy, but its focus is on decarbonising small state, very important, but then much more about biodiversity and conservation than, here is the mitigation and the adaptation and the engineering technology solutions and needs that we have, and here are the scientific and really societally impactful roles that students can play. So a really big bit there, and then loads that industry can do to support.
Right, we'll get into that later. So Giulia, same question to you. What do you see the kind of big barriers, but particularly interested in that comparison between UK and where we can learn from other markets?
Yes, like Hilary just mentioned about a big strategic industrial plan. So the US just launched the Net Zero Industrial Act, which is actually underpinned by skill strategy as well, because like 2023 and 2024 is the big new skills. Now, these are all great strategies. The Net Zero Industrial Act just looks at remanufacturing of specific technologies like batteries, hydrogen, and looks at every components in Europe. So the strategies are there, but of course there is the whole implementation has to be there. So for me, it's because obviously I've worked in public sector and private sector, and I really think that synergies between public sector, private sector, society is actually the key. So public sector, of course, like as the discussion I mentioned, kept the census out. So like the European Year of Skills has been there now for 2 years. They're a European skills platform where people, governments can register their own events. There are free training days accessible to everyone, like even assisted countries like the UK as countries through the Horizon programs, which is the research and development EU program for research and development of key technologies, right? But also there are other enabling factors as leadership. Not only the government has social leadership, but also the digital sector has social leadership. And of course, like this kind of at different levels, strategies can be set by government as have been happening in the EU and the UK, etc. But also civil society has a role to play when they civil society as also Hilary mentioned as well, looking at the skills and like enabling skills like research and development, engineering skills, and also we haven't spoken about artificial intelligence. So how is artificial intelligence going to disrupt the clean tech sector, and like is the government doing enough, or even like our company doing enough to retrain and reskill employees? So often we see that upskilling and reskilling of existing workforce is a barrier, just because for companies it's probably more cost effective to let people go and like get people in who already have the skills, and that's a huge barrier that we have to work on, I think.
Well, just pick up that thread, because a couple of people have mentioned artificial intelligence as a driver here. How do you see this? Because if you talk about the size of the skills challenge, the hope for artificial intelligence, there's lots of kind of fears it's going to be a job killer, but it should, if things work properly, make the size of that challenge less in terms of skills. As John said, it frees up kind of humans to do some more high skilled areas, etc. Are we thinking about that in the right way? There's a lot of scare stories about what it's going to do. But is this a huge opportunity to help reduce that size of the skills challenge and therefore allow us to scale?
I think so, and especially like I'm talking about artificial intelligence in the sense that like I've seen artificial intelligence sort of regulated artificial intelligence in research and development in area, right, sector. So it can definitely help repeating your lab experiments or try and get those repetition tasks in, and leading us humans to do the blue sky thinking of actually using our time and our brain power for the things that really matter, like the creativity in developing new solutions. So that's how I see it.
To get to know. So Matthew, what about you? What do you see as the biggest set barriers to scaling some of the technologies that your organisation works?
Time is investment, which is an investment organisation, investment firm. We talk about scaling, we talk about adoption a lot. We have two funds. We invest in technologies that can deliver reductions in greenhouse gas emissions. We have an early stage fund which invests in the venture capital stage and a later growth equity fund. And in our portfolio at the moment we have 37 different companies, really kind of spanning the decarbonisation space. So we see a lot through our interactions with those companies and what these gaps are, what the kind of scaling or adoption challenge is. And maybe just in my comments, I'll break them down into perhaps two categories. The first is technology. This is about half of our portfolio. Technologies that are economic, right? They're not facing an economic challenge. They work. They have a positive ROI, and the challenges there are really interesting. It's building a bit on what John said about this, the two very different languages, worlds that innovators live in, and those that run mature infrastructure live in. That often is just that, we call it bridging the gap, trying to bridge the gap between the adopters and the innovators. And it could be very practical things like procurement processes which are holding you back, the terms and conditions that we talked about. So that, we work a lot on that, and in our team we have dedicated commercialization experts that come from industry. So they're not innovators, they're not venture capitalists. They have spent careers in industry and they try so they still require a pricing partner. And there, it's really about scaling, getting the cost down, and government incentives often play a role in this sort of subset of the technologies. And depending on where you are, which country you're going to talk about European net zero industry act. For example, in the US with the Inflation Reduction Act, seeing quite a lot of it very valuable incentives coming in for things like CCUS and hydrogen, which are starting to make the projects economic, so it's sort of kind of ticking off the economic question, but then you run into another barrier, which is often permitting, planning, commission, etc. So we're finding a new bottleneck in the system. And it is quite, we've got a couple of CCUS projects in the US, and it's really quite informative to actually read the verbatim comments from some of the community engagements around that, and actually start to realise how actually difficult it is to get a project going. Something the wind industry found for a long time as it was trying to scale up. We're seeing it with new industries like CCUS and hydrogen, where the population doesn't know what it is. They're confused and worried about having a carbon capture project in their backyard. So I think it's in different countries and in different sectors, we're seeing the pinch point maybe appearing in slightly different areas. Certainly I would say that as the EU and the US, policy, economic policy starts to be supported, and you have to move on to other parts of the system to help them. But what I'm excited about is that there's a lot of technology that's available. We see a lot of it out here, but it's really about how do we unlock these things that are holding it back. But really agree with like co-panelists and so on about skills.
And again, it's always useful to reflect on the progress. It's really interesting because we're now getting to the kind of, I don't think, maybe not second order is not the right way, but if we'd been sat here 10 years ago, it would all been about technology. The technology is not quite there, it's too difficult. Now we're talking about procurement, planning, skills, kind of secondary issues which are testament to the success. But I just want to ask you, for the kind of less mature technologies, as you say, the ones that aren't in the money at the moment, are they still needing public support to kind of get up the scale, or is there more private investment coming of the scale that we need?
Well, I think it's a mixture of both. I think so. We have seen, we were one of the earliest pure climate-focused VC funds. In 2016, that there's been a dramatic increase of capital coming in, certainly at seed stage and venture capital stage, into the climate tech space. And lots of purely climate dedicated funds, other funds that PE funds, for example, broadened their strategies to include energy transition. So there's a huge amount of capital available, frankly. So early stage technology, I actually don't think it's the capital element that's worrying. I've mentioned some, it's maybe it was you a guy in your intro, it's a capital and a contract. I would say it's probably more about contracts or business. One part of our model is that our LPs and our investors are all big industrial companies, so we see them as a potential customer, not just a source of finance, but as an enormous customer base for our startups. So we have a sort of dedicated system where we have commercialization leads in our LPs. So we'll take a new piece of technology and go and say, hey Shell, or hey BP, or hey Panellists, we've got something for you, and we think it's excellent. Would you like to try it out? And then try and disseminate that experience more broadly in their sector so that others can try it without having to go through the same process of testing, and they can just rely on their competitors testing.
Absolutely. Right, I'm going to get to the questions that started flooding in. I'm going to combine a couple of them, totally unfairly, but I'm the chance. There we go. First question, which I think Hilary, I'll go to Hilary and Giulia to start. So how do we get young people interested in science and green skills when they're so depressed by the climate crisis? What's the incentive? And linked to that, which is kind of, what does the industry need to do to help with that?
Yeah, so young people, they are concerned, and they, much better than it looks at the moment. So actually giving them a positive contribute through engineering technology or other equipment to enable the mitigation and adaptation.
So what we do,
I guess I'm very aware I'm checking it out.
Yeah.
We have a program we're piloting at the moment called the Climate Schools Program, and one of the things we're specifically looking at is the impact on young people's mental health, and we're asking about, we have some lessons in English and the language around climate change, and what makes, thanks, just in case it drops out again, to make sure that one, what we're doing is ethical, we're not leaving them feeling terrible for the effort at the end of our work with them, but two, actually we make them feel positive, and we make them feel like they can make behavioural change in moving into one of these careers. And we do know that young people are motivated by careers around societal purpose, they are motivated around careers for sustainability. Young people make the connection between engineering and improving sustainability are 7 times more likely to say they are interested in an engineering career. It's an amazing fact. So actually it's about getting those messages out there. We also know that the more careers work that young people have and the more career ready they say they are, the more likely they are to aspire to a role which has labour market need, so to actually go and solve workers' problems and buck gender stereotypes. So that girls who are really career ready are twice as likely to want to go and work in engineering. So there is a lot of opportunity, and there are loads of different ways that organisations can get involved with different age groups. I would encourage you to invest in the long term and work with younger age groups where actually you can change self-identity, career aspiration and disrupt negative stereotypes more effectively. You can't leave it to 16, that's much more of a, you're skilling people and you're getting them into your pipeline. But if no one's doing work earlier on, then we will fall really short in a few years' time. And do, look us up if anyone has any questions about ways to get involved. Please do reach out. We'd love to help.
Giulia, anything to add?
Yeah. So how to get young people involved in science and technology? I think starting early is a key. I think it has been proven scientifically that interest of young girls into scientific subjects just falters away around 8 to 9 years old. So that's the actual time where we can maximize their interest in science. And also I want to mention that the beauty of the UK and the UK education system is that you can change careers. You don't need to have a science degree to actually get science. You can also be interested in science later, train leader, stuff like that. And finally, I just want to mention that every job is a common job. So yes, we do need those scientific and engineering skills. And you don't need a degree, you can graduate, etc. And I think that's also very important to mention to young people that you don't need to know what you want to do or succeed. Don't have that pressure. Just you can still change it along. And having the interest in science doesn't mean that you have to study physics at university. Also taking extra models at university and high school. It's a good one to keep up the interest and new interest in engineering science.
Great. I'm going to take another question from Abel. So what can investors or others in the sector do better to support the fail fast or the quick no's, as it were, approach to innovation, particularly around access to pilot projects, etc. I'll start with Matthew. What investor, is there more that investors can? My experience, investors tend to be quite good at saying the quick no's, but I'll come to John on that.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I can see that quick no is much better. Yes, I do think venture capital, this sort of category, has a lot of experience in this, and we review about 1,000 deals a year, just to give you an example. So that means that over 10 years, you do the maths. 10,000 deals, and you start to get an eye for what can work and what can't work. I think perhaps one of the problems might be that the technology does find some money, but it's not very perhaps very selective money, and therefore the no is dragged out as it slowed down. But certainly, we are very direct. Unfortunately, when you're in this business, you see that having children, except you know that your children are going to die, is a bit of a depressing part of your job. Some of them must die. It's a bit like evolution in a way.
Yeah.
But the excellent ones will rise to the top. So I think it's find some investors that really understand how to kind of scale tech, I would say, to help you figure out what really works.
Yeah, that's right. Sometimes the value of death is good for companies. John, anything?
Well, I think a qualified no, like pre-qualified no is of value because your time is your most precious commodity. People give up their time here to come here today. It's your most precious commodity, and you have to use it both on the startup side and on the technology taking side or investor side. So if you can give means to use the traffic light system, one red, you're gone, 3 or 4 hours, you're gone. You can't fix 3 or 4 problems, So, and the other ones filter through and you try and give them money. But if there's a red flag, explain why it's been done better by an OEM, or that law is about to change and you have no future. But that has been instructed, so we've given that instruction to a number of companies, and they've pivoted. They've completely changed their business model and come back and we've done business with them. So if they don't know why you're saying no, that's no good to the miner. So a quick no is saying, look, here's the 3 problems you have, fix those and come back to us. We won't waste your time. And that works really well.
Yeah, and I think that's the lesson that we have with lots of the SMEs we work with. The ones that you're most optimistic about are the ones who are there to pivot really, really quickly. And some aren't. Some are honestly in love with their technology and their answer, and it's technology and conversational solution, which is not what anyone wants.
The other thing is if somebody comes in and says, okay, that's really interesting technology, as you say, it's a technology looking for a problem, it's a solution looking for a problem. On our list of top 100, you're not even on it, so sorry. But if you can solve any one of these, you'll go back.
That's it. Look for real problems to go. Okay. So this is a kind of there's a few pessimistic questions in here, a few challenges. So please grab the panel up. I'm going to ask one more from the audience, and then I'll have a quick finish. Yeah, that's right. So here's one from Andrew. 26 years to 2050. That's 308 months by my maths. Average 15 years for offshore wind farms to get built. The time left is one project long. Can new tech scale in time? So I'll start with Matthew, and any other views?
Well, I think the answer, if you're an optimist, has to be yes. I think if you look at how previous tech has evolved, and how the adoption curve has worked, if you look at how fast we adopted telecommunications, TVs, cars, etc., then yes, it can scale in time. You can get to global adoption, but we really do have to accelerate. I think it really is possible. We as venture capitalists are optimists. We believe it's possible, but we need to work on all of the frictions that you're talking about on this path to get the scale. Just take one example. We're totally passionate about energy efficiency in our fund. Globally, we throw away about 70% of the raw energy that we sort of collect out of the earth through various frictions and conversion steps. And it's particularly bad in areas like transport. So imagine that if we could actually start to harness the 70% of energy that we just throw away, mainly as heat. I mean, we can come with any amount of growth in electricity demand for data centers or whatever, AI, whatever it is. So, there are things like technologies like that which are absolutely no-brainers, and yet, UK housing stock is an example, yet we're still not bringing our energy efficiency up to the maximum potential, and that's just a no-brainer. So I think the answer to the question is yes, I think we can scale it, we need to get it.
I would just say we absolutely can. It's prioritisation, and I've all witnessed the enormous change that was made by nations and individuals and the whole world in response to the pandemic, and it urgency. There was no ability to knock it into another box. You may try to mention on that. It's a real challenge for the behavioural scientists almost to work out how they tell the story to get the urgency and the prioritisation behind us. Because we can 100% do it, and I don't think it's just optimism talking, I really hope it isn't. But we've got to start looking seriously as we took the pandemic, and I don't see the sign that that is happening.
Yeah.
So, as we said, 49% of the world is voting this year, we're all voting this year. Actually, all that we can do as individuals, as organisations, as citizens, I just think it has to be such concerted effort.
Absolutely. I think that point about timescales is really important in the sense that we always overestimate what we can do in 1-2 years and underestimate what we can do over 10 years. So the question we talked about got the back, which is one of the first, it took 15 years, but they will speed up, they will be quicker if we're able to tackle some of the challenges that Matthew talked about, procurement, other issues. Right, final question from me. So I'm going to make all of you, Hilary mentioned elections coming up, so in a surprise result, each of these guys are going to be Prime Minister for a couple of days, and I'm going to ask them what would be the one thing that they would enact that would enable us to scale more quickly. And I'll work my way down the panel, starting with John.
Okay, vote for me and forget the rest of it. No, okay. Okay, so you've all given your time today. Okay, you all know, I learned something last night, even though I'm not sorry, I'm still learning. So you all know that culture needs strategy for breakfast, right? But apparently, flexibility needs fixed planning for lunch. So if you forget everything else, just take that with you as a nice little version. Now what that means is, and there's a quote from a Fed side, so what they're saying, you can't change anything unless you can change your mind. So if this was worth your while to be here today, the question I would ask is not what your country can do for you, is what you can do for your country. Go with that guy. One thing, just think of it now, when you're leaving this session, what's the one thing you're going to do differently as a result of investing your time here today? And if you can't think of one thing that you like more than the suggestion we're going to give you, use this suggestion. Ask your CEO, the CEO of your company, and if you are the CEO, look in the mirror, right? And say, are you doing enough? Is there one thing you can do differently to get to net zero? Because this is the absolute existential crisis. We've had everything. We've had the COVID problem, pandemic. And Brexit. So, what's the one thing you can do differently as a result of what we've heard here today?
Okay, Giulia? Hilary?
STEM skill strategy, which DFE responds to, and includes including diversity of the workforce. If you talk so much about diversity as I normally do feel free to come back to me or link to me and talk about any of this more.
Okay.
One thing we may do job as minister, I think we mentioned we have money, we have some policies, we need to consolidate them and invest in the right type of technologies with the right type of people.
I don't think I'm going to get re-elected, but it'll be a carbon price that hits everybody, so I'll go for a price on carbon.
Okay, price incentives. I think we're going to have to get attacked. Huge thanks to Pat. Just one point from me. John used the phrase that what used to happen is innovation in moderation. What's incredibly inspiring about this event and chatting to lots of the people here is that is no longer the case. We are going faster and faster. We are not going yet fast enough. So a bunch of ideas, a bunch of thinking which will help us go even faster. So please join me in tackling the great problem. Cheers.